Department of Homeland Security should have absolutely nothing to do with your sheriff's office. Absolutely, let me say that again, absolutely nothing. Okay? Homeland Security has just been around for a few years, since 9/11, of course. And right now we have Janet Napolitano, who used to be the governor of Arizona, saying that veterans and people who believe in Ron Paul and people who believe in the Constitution and people who believe in the Bible and who believe in gun rights are all dangerous and pose some sort of danger to the federal government. Well, I guess she might be right. If the government's out of control and tyrannical and abusive, well, yeah, then she ought to be worrying, I guess. But otherwise, these people and those groups are extremely peaceful. And she even mentioned, I think, the libertarians, which all libertarians have to swear an oath of non-aggression and non-violence. So how did they make that list? The sheriff shouldn't be taking money from the feds in the first place, and then they don't have to worry about that. And if the states would wake the heck up, and I really do mean wake the heck up, if they would stop sending our money to Washington, D.C., then Washington, D.C. won't have our money to hold over us anymore. So it's just, I don't know, maybe it's all too simple, but federal government doesn't create money, they take money. And they take money from the states and from the people. So why do the states sit here and worry about every $10 they send to Washington, D.C., they get $1 back? Well, keep your $10 and you won't have to worry about any of that. Yeah? Well, the citizens are the boss of the sheriff, and so they need to let the sheriff know what they want him to do. Even then, if 99.9% of the people in his county ask him to violate the Constitution, he can't do it. No matter what, he has to keep his word. This is not a democracy. In a democracy, that would be okay. The rule of the majority would win out. That's democracy. In a constitutional republic, the rights of the individual, even if it's just one person in his county, must be protected. And so the people form, the M word, the militia, or the posse. And if you look up the word militia in the dictionary, Google the definition of militia. It's the same thing as the local posse, which the sheriff has had the power to call out the people and actually order the people to come out in helping him in the execution of the law and keeping the peace. And that's where the people really come out. Back to your question about how can citizens support their sheriffs. Well, he works for you. You've got to read this and then take it to him and say, you know what? There was a sheriff who sued the federal government and won a case on the issue of states' rights. We'd like you to consider this. And it's only 50 pages, so he can read this while he eats a donut. Yeah.
Did you see that?
Hey, I was in law enforcement 20 years, I know. The MIAC report was absolutely absurd. Anyone thinking that that's okay has got a screw loose somewhere, and they call us crazy. We mean no other individual on the face of the planet any harm. This is a peaceful movement. This is a movement to restore our Constitution, yes, and we will stand fast in that, and we're not going to move backward for anybody. But we mean no harm to absolutely anyone else. We don't want to hurt anybody. We certainly don't want a fight or a war or anything of that nature. But we're not giving up our guns, and we're not giving up our ammunition, and we're not giving up our children, and we're not giving up our religions, and we're certainly not going to give up any more of our freedom and liberty. And if you really study what's going on in our country, you'll come face to face with the conclusion that I put also in the book, The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope, the best book on the planet right now about freedom, that every citizen in this country should read.
I agree.
The bottom line of this whole book is that it presents this thesis of the book, that the greatest threat to constitutional, God-given American liberty is our own federal government. The worst thing that can happen in this country is for a county sheriff to be corrupt. They're really hard to remove, and because he is corrupt, he has lots of people in his pocket, or he's in other people's pockets. I don't think that happens an awful lot, but I know for a fact that it does happen, and it is happening now. So some states don't even have recall laws. The only way he can be removed in some states if you convict him of a felony. Well, that's happened a few times. There are recall laws, and I suggest people use them, or you find a place to live with a sheriff who is honest and keeps his oath of office. But to the sheriffs who are corrupt, luckily it's a small percentage. But what we need all sheriffs to do is to come to the realization that the oath of office is their ultimate goal and purpose and duty. And if you're just going to take the oath as a ceremony to get your picture in the paper at the beginning of your term, then you've violated the Constitution, and you've violated your oath of office, and you violated the trust of the people. A recall is just a signature drive where people in the county sign a petition to have another election. And the sheriff still is on that ballot, or any other corrupt elected official is still on that ballot, but it puts them up for another election and gives the people another chance to kick them out. The Real ID Act is one of many coming out down the pike in Washington, D.C. Let's go back a little bit too to the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment does bestow, without question, and it would take any high school student maybe 5 minutes to find the intent of the Founding Fathers. They would have to try to go find it because they're not taught the Second Amendment and from the intent of the Founding Fathers in schools. I've been a government teacher in high school before, and I know it does not teach the truth. Most of the government books in this country school system do not teach the truth about our foundation or about our government or about the Founding Fathers. But there's a lot of information out there, and you can find it. But the federal government's trying to force more gun control down our throats. They're trying to force this national ID down our throats. That's going to have also a part to play with gun control. And I simply don't trust any of it. But the overall socialistic agenda that is saturating Washington, D.C. politics right now, it's all unconstitutional. Government is not here to feed us, to clothe us, to take care of us, to educate us, to basically take care of us. And let me warn you, friends, if you want the federal government to take care of you, they will. And that should scare you to death. But the National ID Act, all that stuff, H.R. 45, the bottom line is that there's already about 22,000 gun control laws in this country, all of which are unconstitutional. Every one of them. The people have the right to keep and bear arms, and what gun I own, and how I get it, and how much ammo I have, or how many guns I have. Guess what? I don't want to be rude here, but it's none of your business, and it certainly is none of my government's business. The sheriff can refuse any order or policy or suggestion or law or anything else from Washington, D.C. or from the state capitol if it violates the rights of the people. He is the ultimate check and balance. And he usually has a gun. Freedom of the press, freedom, free speech, it's all combined together. And a lot of times these same groups that have been attacked are the ones that are the most vocal. So that's why Janet Napolitano's coming after them, because they have to label you as something so people won't listen to you. And of course, who jumps on board on that attack? Well, it's usually ABC and CBS and NBC and CNN and, you know, what are these, government-owned media outlets? You know, the reason that we have freedom of the press is not so we can read about LeBron James in the sports page of the newspaper. It's so that the press actually is a check and balance against overzealous government also, to make sure that the people will always hear the truth about what's really going on. Well, that's not happening anymore.